take a look at the detailed definition for these and some of the examples. So operating expenses, remember, is the middle part of multi-step income statement. These are the expenses that we consider relates to day-to-day operations, day-to-day activities on purchasing the inventory or selling the inventory. Okay, we break down all the expenses into two categories, selling expenses and general expenses. So just by its name, how it's labeled, selling expenses is closely related to the store. So any expense that you see incurred within the store, the utility expense for the personnel, the people that you hire for the corporation that works actually in the store, or other rental expenses that relates to the store itself, depreciation on some of the assets, depreciation expense on the equipment or assets that is there, actually physically there in the store. Any expense that relates to the store falls under this selling expense category. So we always list selling expenses first, and then we consider general expenses. Okay, so these are some of the examples. It's not the whole set, but it gives you an understanding of what falls under this category. So if you're given a bunch of different types of expenses, as long as it tells you it's store related, these are the people, the wages relates to the people that you hire to actually, the cashier there to help you scan the items that customer purchases, or some of the sales representative that's actually there in the store. All of these costs will fall under this category. Okay, remember we talked about freight out delivery expenses? So if the seller, if our company sells products to customer and we agree on FOB destination point, not the shipping point one, this destination, then we are the party, the seller, that is in charge for freight charges. Okay, so in this case, any freight cost that the seller is responsible for falls under delivery expenses. So again, this closely relates to the products, the selling cycle or purchases cycle, then it falls under selling expenses. So as opposed to this, selling expense, the other category is general expenses. So meaning anything that is related to the administrative office's expense. The people that don't actually work for the store, but is still working for the corporation, inside the offices, the people that you hire there, again, the rental, depreciation expense, pretty much it's the same category here besides the sales salary there. Pretty much the same category, but it relates to administrative offices. Okay, so anything that is not related to the store, but it still relates to daily activities, operation cycle for the business, falls under general expense category. So salary for management level that don't really actually monitor daily activities physically at the store, but in the office. Administrative personnel that you hired, or any type of rental expense that relates to the office, all of this falls under general expense, not the sales expense category. Okay, so this is just a way how we group the information. So remember, financial statements, the more detailed the information is, the better, because people who rely on the statements do not work inside the business. Okay, so we're trying to differentiate operating expenses into the part that closely relates to the store and marketing the products, and other types that relates to offices. So these are different types of expenses. So again, the first section of the multi-step income statement, we get to gross profit. Then we consider all the other operating expenses, selling expenses, general expenses, then we reach the second subtotal, operating income. So after operating income, if the company also incurred other type of minor expenses that doesn't really closely link to daily operation activities, for example, interest expense that you only be paying from time to time either on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, or interest revenue that you're getting from the people that you borrow money to, or other gains and losses on trading long-term assets which doesn't happen on a daily basis.